Today, guys, we're gonna read Atomic Habits book made by James Clear. Alright, let's get started. Don't forget to get this book signed. Yes. Oh. Atomic. Atomic. An extremely small amount of a thing, the single irreducible unit of a larger system, the source of immense energy or power. Habit. A routine or practice formed regularly, an automatic response to a specific situation. Gotta make sure I don't gotta make sure I don't skip any pages. The second law, make it attractive. How to make a habit irresponsible. The role of family and friends is shaping your habits. How to find and fix the cause of your bad habits. The third law makes it easy. Walk slowly but never backward. The law of last effort. How to stop I don't know how to say that word. By using the 2-minute rule. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. The fourth law, make it satisfying. The cardinal rule of behavioral change. How to stick with good habits every day. How an accountability partner can change everything. Oh god. Hold up, guys. There we go. Advanced tactics. How to go from being merely good to be truly great. The truth about talent. When genes matter and when they don't. The Goldilocks rule, how to stay motivated in life and work. The downside of creating good habits. Conclusion. The secret to results that last. Appendix. What should you read next? Little lessons from the 4 laws. How to apply these ideas in businesses. How to apply these ideas into parenting. Acknowledgements, notes, index. Atomic Habits. An easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. Introduction, my story. On the final day of my sophomore year of high school, I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. As my classmate took a full swing, the bat slipped out of his hand and came flying toward me. Before circling me directly between the eyes. I have no memory of the moment of impact. The bat smashed into my face with such force that it crushed my nose into a distorted U-shape. The collision sent the soft tissue of my brain slamming into the inside of my skull. Immediately a wave of swelling surged throughout my head. In a fraction of a second, I had a broken nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets. When I opened my eyes, I saw people starting around me and running over to help. I looked down and noticed spots of red on my clothes. One of my classmates took off the shirt of his back and handed it to me. I who used it to plug the stream of blood rushing from my broken nose. Shocked and confused, I was unaware how seriously I've been injured. My teacher looped his arm around me, my shoulder, and we began the long walk to the nurse's office, across the field, down the hill and back. Into school, random hands touched my side, holding me upright. We took our time and walked slowly. Nobody realized that every minute mattered. When we arrived at the nursery, she asked me a series of questions. What year is it? 1998. I answered it was actually 2002. Who was the president of the United States? Bill Clinton. I said the correct answer. The correct answer was George W. Bush. What is your mom's name? I stalled 10 seconds past Patty. I said casually, ignoring the fact I had taken me 10 seconds to remember my own mother's name. That is the last question I remember. My body was unable to handle the rapid swelling in my brain, and I lost consciousness before the ambulance arrived 10 minutes later. I was carried out of school and taken to the local hospital. Shortly after arriving, my body began to shut down. I struggled with basic functions like swallowing and breathing. I had my first seizure of the day. Then I stopped breathing entirely as the doctors hurried to supply me with oxygen. I also decided the local hospital was unequipped to handle the situation and ordered a helicopter to fly me to a larger hospital in Cincinnati. I was brought up out of the emergency room doors and toward the helipad across the street. The stretcher rattled on a bumpy sidewalk as one nurse pushed me along while another pumped each breath into me by hand. My mother, who had arrived at the hospital a few minutes before I climbed into the helicopter beside me, I remained unconscious and unable to breathe on my own as she held my hand during the flight. While my mother rode with me in the helicopter, my father went home to check on my brother and my sister and break the news to them. Her 8th grade graduation ceremony that night, after passing my siblings off to the family and friends, drove to Cincinnati to meet my mother. When my mom and I landed on the roof of the hospital, a team of nearly 20 doctors and nurses sprinted onto the helipad, wheeled me into a trauma unit. By this time, the swelling in my brain had become so severe that I was having repeated post-traumatic seizures. My broken bones needed to be fixed, but I was in no condition to undergo surgery. After yet another seizure, my third of the day, I was put into a medically induced coma and placed on a volunteer. My parents were no strangers to this hospital. 10 years earlier, they had entered the same building on the ground floor after my sister was diagnosed with leukemia. At the age of 3, I was 5 at the time. My brother treatment, spinal tap, and bone marrow biopsies, and little sister finally walked out of the hospital healthy and cancer-free. And now, after 10 years of a normal life, my parents found themselves back in the same place with a different child. While I slipped into a coma, the hospital sent a priest and a social worker to comfort my parents. It was the same priest who had met with them a decade earlier. On the evening they found out my sister had cancer, a day faded into a night of serious machines kept me alive. My parents slept restlessly on the hospital mattress. One moment they would collapse from fatigue, the next they would be wide awake with worry My mother would tell me later it was one of the worst nightmares I've ever heard. Anyway, guys, if you want to see part 2, like and subscribe, and I'll do a part 2. Bye.